have had 3 tiara appearances within the last week, which is always so fun. We had the Fabergé Myrtle wreath tiara worn at the wedding of the Duke of Westminster. We had the ruby peacock tiara worn again by Queen Maxima. And finally, the Arabic scroll tiara makes another appearance by Queen Rania. And these are always so fun because I love tiaras. I love talking about them. I love the jewelry. So if you guys also love tiaras and you have a passion for royal fashion, feel free to subscribe to Royal Fashion News because we loved going over all these things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the Fabergé Myrtle Wreath Tiara. And this one doesn't have a super huge, long history here. And so I wanted to do maybe something on the other Westminster tiaras, but then I thought, you know what? We've had 3 tiara appearances recently. Let's go over all of them real quick. And I have covered these tiaras in other videos, so we won't spend too much time, but the Fabergé Myrtle Wreath Tiara was made in 1906 by the famous Russian jewelry house, and specifically, most likely, by Albert Holmstrom. It was made for Hugh Grosvenor for his wedding day to Lady Mabel Crichton. And interestingly enough, she did not actually wear the piece on her wedding day, or I really think at any point afterwards, maybe except for a time or two, because apparently she disliked ostentatious displays of wealth. And so that is rather interesting. And sadly, Hugh was killed in World War I. And I thought it was interesting that Olivia wore this particular tiara because obviously her husband's name is also Hugh Grosvenor. I thought that was kind of sweet. It's obviously a connection and ode to the past. And she did that via her wedding look as well. And so I appreciated that connection very much. And so the tiara is comprised of myrtle leaves set with diamonds and stalks of engraved red gold and a rubbed over silver setting, according to the Royal Watcher. And I did notice you could actually see a bit of the red gold there, which I guess is kind of a rose gold. It's different than rose gold, although I feel they're similar. I have to look more into the process and see what differentiates them. Perhaps it's an older way of kind of getting that rose gold effect. But it looked really, really gorgeous. Although I will say I feel like her hair was so severe and some of the tiara placement was maybe not perfection. So it was great though to see her in that. And it has been worn by a couple others. It's been worn by Viola, the Duchess of Westminster, to the state opening of Parliament in 1969. It has been worn to several weddings, including Lady Tamara Grosvenor, the sister of the current Duke, Lady Rosanna Ains Care, the cousin of the current Duke via his father. And so it looks like it hasn't been worn by the Duke's other 2 sisters. I just wanted to double check because I believe they are both married, but I do think it's lovely that they wore it again. And there's also a special connection to his mother, Natalia. So his mother, Natalia, is connected to actually Russian aristocracy. So it actually makes sense to have that connection to Fabergé. They're represented at the wedding. And so she was connected via her great aunt, Nadia Mountbatten, who was also the aunt of the Duke of Edinburgh and the sister-in-law to the Queen of Sweden. And so I just think that connection is just so incredibly interesting. And the Dowager Duchess of Westminster, even though she has that Russian heritage, has never actually worn this tiara, which is rather interesting. In fact, the tiara she wore for her wedding, the Bagrash and Paré, actually has not been worn since her wedding. It doesn't seem like any of them wore tiaras very much, which I think is quite sad. So hoping maybe we see Olivia and more tiaras there in the future, but I just don't know if that'll happen. And I thought Olivia looked lovely on her wedding day in terms of that she looked very pretty, but I was not a fan of her wedding look. So if you want my analysis of her wedding look, you can check out this other video right up here. And so next we're moving on to Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, who attended the diplomatic corps reception there at the Amsterdam Palace. And she was wearing the ruby peacock tiara. So just a little history. It was commissioned in 1897 by Queen Emma, who was utilizing some of the rubies from the collection of her predecessor, Queen Sophie, and it was created by Sherman and Co. The set included a tiara, necklace, and stomacher, and the set was created in part as an alternative to the much heavier Dutch Mellerio ruby tiara, which I think is especially gorgeous. And so the ruby necklace, which very much mimics the tiara, the difference is sort of that I believe the top of the peacock feather on the necklace or tiara, I believe on the necklace is diamonds and on the tiara it's rubies. And so the necklace was worn by Queen Juliana at her inauguration. And surprisingly, the ruby peacock tiara was given to Princess Beatrix's, was formerly the queen, younger sister, Princess Irene, who used it extensively and likely owned it. It was actually a gift from, I believe, Queen Wilhelmina to her. And it's because it is a bit odd. Generally, families like to keep the tiaras together. So it is a bit unusual to give it to a lower ranking member of the family, just because that might mean the tiara might leave the family or it might be sold down the line. So most of the time they try to keep them together, although that is sort of a bit of a newer situation. And so Princess Irene wore the tiara often, but then it disappeared for several years, if not decades. And many feared that it had been sold, because that is sometimes what happens when tiaras or jewelry disappears, that they have been sold privately or they end up on the auction block at some point. But then all of a sudden, things got cleared up when it appeared on the head of Queen Maxima, who was then Princess Maxima, or the Princess of Orange, in 2009 for the Swedish state visit to the Netherlands. And so it seems like the tiara re-entered the main line of the family and has been worn by Queen Maxima, Queen, now Princess Beatrix, and Princess Amalia, who is the future Queen of the Netherlands. And so Queen Maxima most recently wore it at the diplomatic corps reception. She wore the tiara and the necklace together. And I did put this on as one of my worst picks on my best and worst videos. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, where I kind of review the royal looks of the week, you are welcome to do so. And I did want to clarify too, because I believe in a previous video, I did not clear up that Princess Irene actually owned it and that it ended up going back into the main line of the family and was given to her by Wilhelmina. So it's nice to be able to clarify something here in a later video. And last, we're going to discuss here real quick is Queen Rania's Arabic script or Arabic scroll tiara. So I've heard it both ways. I think it's actually script. And so this is a tiara that's very interesting, is that because it's basically the beauty of Arabic script, and you want to call it calligraphy, but I think that's wrong. Arabic script, which it has a very beautiful, which is very beautiful. And so this tiara is set with 1,300 diamonds, including a large pear-shaped diamond that weighs 20 carats and 7 other large dropped stones. The tiara reads, "Greatness for Allah." And so this is actually a new tiara. So it was ordered by King Abdullah in 2005 from Fred. And what's interesting is that the jeweler's son shared some pictures of the process of making the tiara. And I find these super interesting. I don't understand quite what he's doing, but I remember looking through these and going, wow, that's so unique. I didn't know that's how because they have the sort of this wood frame for it and they're making aspects of it on the wood frame. So I just thought, if you haven't seen it, that is so interesting. And Queen Rania, though, wore the tiara for the first time in 2005 at the Jordanian state visit to the Netherlands, and only one other time in for a photo shoot. But that has changed recently. So we saw her bust out this tiara again, a wedding of her son, Crown Prince Hussein, to Rajwa in 2023. And this was at the sort of reception banquet at the end of the day. That was a long day. I was watching that wedding. It was like 8 hours, long day. And it also showed up again in the official portraits to commemorate the King's Silver Jubilee. And then she also wore it to the official sort of celebration for the King's Silver Jubilee. So that is 25 years on the throne. It was sort of a concert parade event there in Jordan. They had members of the military, they had cultural performance, everything there. So it looked like quite the event. I will say, though, again, on my best and worst dress list, Queen Rania came out on the worst dress list because I thought her outfit was incredibly bizarre. I appreciate the sentiment behind it because there was a lot of cultural and historic connections, but I just didn't feel like the look really worked. But I was so excited to see her pull out that tiara again, because we've seen her wear a tiara a couple of times in the intermediary. She usually wears one of her smaller pieces. So I wonder if tiaras maybe give her a bit of a headache. And so it's not something she wants to bust out too often, but it's been so nice to see a couple of these tiaras be featured yet again. So guys, let me know what you think of our recent tiara appearances. What was your favorite? I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Bye.
We don't count the carats, we count the centuries.